All right, we're back, and it is COMP229. It's the fall 2016 semester, and here's Centennial, and it's week 12, part 2 of our broadcast. Some late joiners, that's good. At least they came. Nice to see happy faces, right? So we're doing a little bit of a poll whether we should do the exam, the final exam or not. It's up to you if you don't feel like it. There's good reasons against it, like I said, and good reasons for. It's up to you. Okay, let's get to this stuff. So we're going to go into the meat and bones that we're here today. I want to try and complete the shopping cart and the checkout today. Now, I'll tell you that in advance, we already have the solution online. It's posted here in the shopping cart, this whole MVC Music Store step through that we've been doing. And again, I shared the link with you. Now, what we need to do is modify this stuff so it works with MVC5, right? So that's what we're going to be doing primarily. We have a problem, right? One of the problems are that we need a model for the cart, and we need a model for the order, right? These two models, but we don't have them, right? So there's two options, and I want you to think about this. This is a real life problem, right? I have a database, and I have tables that I haven't included in my models. What should you do? I can update what database? Well, the database is there. It has all the data. I'm not going to update. I'm not going to touch the database. Remember, in real life, if I have data on the database, do I want to go monkey with the database? No way. I don't want to touch the database. If you touch the database, I told you, it's going to be a career-limiting move. You're going to be out the door, right? If you lose data. So you don't want to ever do that, ever. Don't touch the database, right? You want to get information from the database, yes, but not monkey with the database, number one. So think about this now. I have a database. It's already got the tables. I just need the models. There's a couple of approaches I could use. What are the approaches? What would you say? This is part of your learning, right? So I'm going to start asking. So what are the options? What is it? I got to speak up, man. I can't hear you. Code first. Code first. What do you mean? Okay, but I'm already using a code first approach. What do you want me to do? So, but I already generated the models, right? I remember I used the EF to generate the models already, right? Because if you look at the models, here's the models from, this is the assignment, the lesson from last week. In the lesson from last week, and we've been accumulating this lesson, remember? We have, so far, this is what our requirement was. We were making an application that was just a catalog. That's all we've done so far. We haven't done it so you can order online. Now we're going to add shopping cart, right? That's another feature that we're adding in. I don't have my models. I only have album, artist, and genre. I don't have order, and I don't have shopping cart. Right? I don't have those two things. So what do I do? So one of the things was you said use EF, and all that kind of stuff, right? What are the things? I want to hear some other people's advice. All right, because you're my developer now. You're advising me. I'm the owner of the application, and you're going to be developing. You tell me what I should do. What do you think should happen? Tell me. Give me advice. Take a shot, even if it's wrong. It doesn't matter. It's good. This is a safe learning environment. I'm not going to get mad at you, right? Just say what you think is the right thing to do. It's okay. She's shaking her head. She's like, no, don't ask me. Hina, tell me what it is. You're right in front of me. You got the new laptop. You tell me what it is. Come on. You got to pay for your sins on the tree of woe. Tell me, right? No? She doesn't want to answer, all right? You were away. You were away. You were away. I missed you. You have to tell me what it is. Tell me the answer. Huh? No, you don't answer? Come on, you're smart enough. You can figure it out. The question is, all right, here's the question. And you know what? I'm going to use concept, whatchamacallit, the Slack again. We'll see what the answers are. I want to hear from the people at home, maybe, if people know. So the question is, I have some stuff. Okay, some more other things happening here. I have some, that's good, thank you. I have some, I have these three models. There are two models that I have to kind of include. What do I do, right? So what are my options? What are my options when it comes to including, right, two new model classes? That's the question, right? I'm not going to give you a poll here. I'm just generally asking the question on Slack, okay? So what are my options? So the two classes I want to add, the two new model classes I'm adding are the the cart class, right, and the order class. What are my options? Bring it up on Slack. All right, so people, maybe if someone on home, I want you guys to think of that. I only want those two classes. What are my options? What do I do? What would you do if you were given? If this your employer said, "Hey, I want you to create this stuff," and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I want to hear at least someone's opinion. No one's giving me an opinion. Actually, I got one, right? So what would you do? Yeah, I've got your opinion already. I don't want to hear more, right? Eddie, how about you? Any idea? Question is, I'm including 2 new model classes I don't have right now. In my models folder, right, I have album, artist, and genre. These are the ones that have been generated for me because of my MVC framework, right? I want to add in 2 more classes, 2 more model classes, right, that describe the tables. That's what they're going to do. What do I do? What are my options? What can I do? I can lose what? By myself? Like by hand bomb it, basically is what you're saying. So put it in by hand. Okay, so one option I hear is putting in by hand. That's an option, right? I could do that, right? That's an option. Let's think if this is a good option or not. What other options are there? Can we think about other options? Let's brainstorm together as a group. What other options do I have for making this happen? ADO.net. That's not an option. I wouldn't recommend that. So you're asking me to do it again. You're asking me to basically erase all the models that are there. That's what I have to do, and do it again. I can't add another one. The only way I could do is add a new connection. That means I would have another model class as well, right? I mean, I would have to have another context class. Every time I need a new connection, I need another context class, right? Because I couldn't just reconnect to the model and do it, that way. So that's not an option. Let's see what Slack tells us. Anyone have some other ideas? No one has other ideas. Hard code is the one way so far. Yeah. Let's be creative, guys. Come on. Imagine this is your job. What would you do? What would you do? You've been here for the class. What would you do? Throw it up there. You have nothing to lose. Tell me what you would do. That's another way of doing it. Model. How about this, guys? How about creating an experiment? How about making another project that has nothing to do with my stuff? You have free access to Visual Studio. Could I not reconnect to the server with another project? Just putting it out there, right? Why would I do the hard work? Guys, I want you to be smart, all right, in real life. Don't do the hard lifting. Don't write it manually yourself. Get Visual Studio to write it for you. That's the right approach. The other way to do it is there's something called code first migrations. And I want to point it out to you, right, it's called code first migrations. Right, and it exists for people who want to change their I'm going to put it out there in the entity framework. We want to migrate our model or our existing database, right? When you have an initial database, that's one thing, but we want to move to a new database or something changed on the database, and we want to have other things. We can use something called code first migrations. Now, I think code first migrations, to me, at this point in time, is outside the context of our class, like our ability to do stuff here in class. We don't have time for that, right? So, quick and dirty, make another project, right? Seriously, right? The other project is still going to connect to the entity framework. It's going to be an empty project, but it's going to give us 2 things: our classes. Then we're going to take those classes the way they are, copy them into our model. Done. We don't have to write anything, right? Why? Because it's going to map one-to-one with our existing tables that are on the database. It's not going to monkey with our project, right? It won't monkey with our existing project at all, right? And we'll have all the code we need to connect. It's not going to change anything, right? That's what I recommend. Because if I was to hand bomb it like it says here, right? And this is the existing stuff that we have here. Yes, we could hand bomb it. That's the other way we could do it. And it has all the detail right here. If I want to put in my order class, right? And there's my cart class, my order detail class, right? These are the 2 models we could create, right? If I really wanted to, okay? I'm just putting it out there so that no one's upset about this later on, right? We still may have to do something by hand, right? Notice that it says it won't compile yet because it has an orders detailed navigation property which depends on the class we haven't created yet. because over here, notice that there is an order details method right here. Okay, let's try to understand this a little bit more because before we make a decision. All right, let's take a look at this. If I was to look at my database, right, and notice locally we're running with this database in here. Okay, if I was to open this up, if I look at databases, and this is in this instance, by the way, not that I'm saying your solution to write it by hand isn't a good solution. It's okay, right? But first of all, you have to know, I would analyze what the database is about. So here's my COMP229 database, right? And here's my MVC Music Store database. This is where all our tables are, MVC Music Store. Let's take a look at my tables. I already have the data, right? Album, artist, cart, genre, order, and order detail. So order detail, and cart, those three classes, I got to add in manually. Why? I don't have to do that, right? Create another project, include everything, right? All these things here, except for the security pieces, right? And then grab the stuff you need from these three classes, right? That's going to be created automatically from these things, and include it in my database, right? More control. And you can also, it'll be a sample of what I could write. Now I can always modify my models after. I can modify whatever I want, but I have Microsoft being able to connect nicely to my database for me. And remember, we talked about MVC being made by programmers for programmers to scaffold quickly. So this is just another option for our particular class. It's not the only option, maybe not even the best option, but it's an option. And I want you to always think about creative ways of handling problems, okay? So let's try this out. So first, let's close off my project. My project right now is lesson 11. We're going to make lesson 12 in a second. First, we're going to modify lesson 11. So let's make a new project. So I'm going to file, new project. You guys can follow me along with me so you can see what I'm talking about here. We're going to make something called the shopping cart solution project. That's what we're going to make, right? Shopping cart project. And we're going to call it like this. I'm going to kind of go in here and go COMP229, and it'll be like just shopping cart. Because that's what I want, right? It won't have anything to do with my lessons, right? And I'm going to put it inside the right folder, right? So COMP229. I don't care about adding a Git repository, but it's okay. It's not going to hurt me, right? And what I want to do is make a web ASP.NET project, this one. So it's an empty project, basically, what I'm going to be doing, okay? I'm going to click OK. I'm going to select MVC like normal and press OK. I'm not going to change a darn thing. Everything's going to be as normal. Now, I'm going to compile the project. That's what I'm definitely going to do, right? And run it so that everything, all of my libraries and everything else is happening on the back end. I'm going to do that. I'm going to create the folders that I need. I want to create whatever I need. And then, if I'm smart, and again, it's not like for sure that this is all going to work, because there's a couple of problems I'm going to run into. One, my namespace has to be changed. I'm going to tell you, because my project is called shopping cart, right? And my namespace is going to be comp, whatever it's going to be, lesson 12, right? That's a totally different namespace. So those things we have to change. But the other heavy lifting we don't have to do, right? Let's try this out. So let's compile and run. So we're going to do this locally. Okay, so we're running the project for the first time. Again, remember, you have Visual Studio. You have access to create, experiment projects, different solutions to see if you can find information, how to connect, right? Sometimes it's the right approach, especially when you want to look at a specific feature you're looking to add to a project. And this specific feature is shopping cart and order details, right? It's like one piece. It has nothing to do with the other pieces. They're, kind of like independent of each other so far, right? Kind of. So now that this is run, we're good. Now let's add in the pieces we need. So I'm going to stop debugging. And in my models folder, just do the same thing I did last time. So I'm going to go models. I'm going to add, right? I'm going to go add I want to add a new item, right, to the folder like we normally do. I'm going to go to the data class, the data part here. I'm going to go ADO.NET Entity Data Model. If I'm smart, right, I want to call it the exact same thing. MVC Music Store context or something like that, right? Doesn't matter. We'll change it after. But I'm going to try it anyway. So MVC, I think that's what I called it, yeah? Maybe it is. Okay, so if I'm smart, you want to try and keep this the same as much as possible, other than the namespace, right? So now I'm going to add. It's going to ask me what I want. It's going to be this one, like you said, right? And I'm going to click next. I don't want my default connection. This is incorrect, right? I want a new connection, and it's got to be this one because we're using local database. Okay, new connection. I'm going to connect to my local database like normal, right? One day when my VM responds, right? See, here now you don't have any problems like this anymore because now you have a fast machine, right? So now you can go local DB, right? And then \MS SQL local DB. Make sure you spell it correctly. And then if I pull it down, the test is I should see all the databases here if I did it right. There it is, which is MVC Music Store. That's my context. And I'll press OK. Now, after this, it's going to ask me, it's going to show me this, and I want to make this Music Store, MVC Music Store connection. These are all things that are very important because this is exactly how we made the other one, right? Click Next. And now I have a choice of choosing tables. Okay, I don't care about my security pieces. Who cares about that? But I do care about this. I'll choose everything because they're all related. That's why it's important. Cart, genre, order, and order detail. Those things I definitely want to choose, right? And press Finish. Now, and this is where the magic happens, right? I got my stuff. And I have additional information here. Notice I only had album, artist, and genre before, but now I have all this extra stuff. And I have all this extra stuff that I would have to hand bomb, right? Why would I need to do this stuff if I don't need to do it, right? So I definitely I don't need any of this stuff. This is extra, right? So I can get rid of this. But the great thing is, without doing a darn thing, if I look at here, here's my orders, right? And this is my order detail. I got my order detail here, which I'd like to keep, right? With all the details that I want already typed in for me, and all this typing, I have no typing to do. That's why. Right? Not because I want you to suffer or because this is the only way. There's other ways of doing this. You can hand bomb it, do code first migrations and all that stuff. But why? Okay, so now we have this. Great, fantastic. We're going to get out of here, right? Let's create our new project. So file. First of all, let's build, right? So if we don't build our solution, that would be very bad if it didn't build after this, right? Build succeeded. That's a good thing. And let's run the project, like so. There's no problems, right? Because if there's any issues, it'll come up right now. All right. So now they have nothing. This isn't doing anything. It's not even accessing the model. But the great thing is, you know, if there's any problems, any kind of overall problems with what we did, it'll come up. Great, fantastic. Now I have these models. Now the things we need to remember are, nothing else got changed here. The only thing that happened was in our models folder. That's it, right? So there's 4 files we have to look at. We have to look at our order. We have to look at our order details, this one. We have to also look at our cart, this one. And we also have to look at the final thing, which is the MVC Music Store context, which changed to add all this stuff, right? Those are the 4 things we have to look at. I'm not going to directly copy my MVC Music Store context. I'm going to copy piece parts, some of the stuff I need, all right? And then see if it works. When the plan is, here's my plan. I'm going to make a new template from lesson 11, make lesson 12, add in the new information, run it to see if it builds, and then modify from there. Okay, that's my plan. And a very methodical way. Here's a great way, that's what's going to happen. Worst case, I can always go back to lesson 11. Nothing's changed. If I messed up, I can always go back and find what I did wrong, and I can modify things. This is a good approach because I have my previous work, and I have a plan for migrating to the next version of my app, right? Okay, let's do this now without too much more talk. So File, I'm going to open my project. I want to open up lesson 11. This is inside of my, if I can find it properly, in my crazy PC, right? So C, users, unfortunately I have to do this because I'm virtualizing Tom, and it's going to go into documents. So I'm just looking for my stuff under COMP229. I'm looking for lesson 11, and I'm opening up my solution file. That's what this is. Press open, right? So this is going to kill this one and open up the other one. There it is. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to export. So I'm going to file. I'm going to, what I want to do is export my template, right? Here it is. I'm just choosing the default options, right? I'm not changing a darn thing. Going finish and waiting for my File Explorer screen to come up to tell me that it's done. So I've got my template. Okay, so step 1, create your template. Yay, it's done. Good. Now next, I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to New Project, right? And I'm going to start off from my templates. I'm going to click on C#, scroll down all the way until I see my project, which is less than 11, right? So wherever it happens to be, which is right here, right? I'm going to change this from less than 111 to less than 12, right? And click OK, which is going to generate my new less than 12 project without corrupting my less than 11. Okay, good. Run the project as is. So I'm going to run build my solution. It's going to download all the existing NuGet packages, right? That's important to do, right? So when it's done, then my build succeeded, then I'm going to run my project to see if I can do everything that I could do before, right? Before I move on. Because if there's a problem here and I add stuff to it, I won't know that my migrating from one project to the other caused the problem, right? I don't want that to happen, okay? So I want to talk about this. So I should be able to do something like click on Rock and see all my albums. So I have access, as you can see. All the regular things I have before. And I should be able to log in. So I should be able to log in as admin. It should give me that option because I'm connected. So I should be able to go here and do something like admin at example.com. And I only had 4 characters. Last time was 1, 2, 3, 4. So I should be able to get here and go 1, 2, 3, 4 locally and click login, right? And now I should have access to another store manager setting, all the stuff we did last time. So a little bit of a test to see we have current functionality, right? Which we do. Okay? Fantastic. Now, let's stop. So one step at a time. Again, being as diligent as we can. I have the data now for my models folder. And I'm going to put it in there. But I need to open up the raw files. And the great thing about this, I know where they exist. They exist inside the last project I made, which is C:\\. And again, if I go into where I stored it, it's probably under users. Let's go back again. Users, Tom, COMP229, under documents. Yours will be somewhere else, obviously. Here's COMP229. I'm going to go into my example project, which is my shopping cart. Here it is. I'm going to go into my shopping cart package, into models, and I'm going to directly pull them in without any changes, the ones I can. So this one, right? And then this one. I'm sorry. I think it's yeah. I gotta be careful how to do this because is it shift select, shift click. Sorry, because I'm using virtualization, it may not work exactly the same. No, this isn't it. Because I'm trying to click control. Usually it's control, but it could be command. I'll do those two first, and then I'll do that one. Okay. So draw those into the models class. So they just kind of put in, right? And then what I want to do is I want to take the other ones. Now remember, I have to modify them, right? This is just the first step. Put them into models. Okay, so now let's go in there and see what it says. So my cart model, notice that my namespace is incorrect, right? So what am I doing? I'm going to look at my genre model and take the namespace from here, right? This whole line, copy it, and then go back into my carts model and put it back, right? Because that's important. Yeah, that's kind of step one, right? Okay, let's keep doing that for the other ones because I have my order. Here's my order one. Let's change the namespace for that one. So it can't be shopping cart, right? And the same thing for my order details. Okay, so now I have my models in there. Now this is a great thing to do too because I've shown you how to fix some of your problems too, right? You have something that worked on one project, you tried it, and you want to add other pieces to the project in there. There's some things you can do here. It's not rocket science to do this kind of thing, right? Okay, so let's save everything, and now we have to modify our MVC Music Store context class. Remember we talked about this? Because I only have these, and inside my MVC Music Store context class, right? I don't want to directly copy because I have a lot of other things in here, right? So my recommendation is open this in an editor, right? Like edit it in something else, like this even, right? And notice I have all this information, which I don't need. I remember I removed that last week, right? So you don't have to have that in. I'm just using a text edit right now, right? But what I do need is all the other information. So I notice that I have album, artist, and genre. I'm just going to put the other ones in there. They're just in alphabetical order. So I'm going to put the carts first. I'm going to cut this out or copy it. I'm not going to touch the original. Why? If it's working, right? So I'll put this down here. This is the new stuff. And I'll even annotate it. So this is my new features, right, that I'm adding in. Okay, and I'm also going to pull in my orders and my order details. Right, what are they? They're the features for my shopping cart. Right, that's what they are. Those are the 3 things we're putting in. And notice that there's no error right now. Okay, because And I had to do it in this way because I already have my order class, I already have my order details class, and I already have my cart class. Otherwise, I couldn't do this without an error. Because it's looking for those. I'm creating a virtual DB set of type cart, order, and order details. And I wouldn't have that if these other classes didn't exist. So of course, this is a new feature, which is the shopping cart and checkout. That's what I'm kind of putting in. Okay, so there they are. Now, new classes, new models. We haven't made any controllers. Let's compile and build. We haven't changed anything else, step by step. Okay, and if it doesn't work, right, we can always hand bomb it. It's not going to hurt anybody, right? And I also want to compare. Now, this shouldn't touch anything, but what we're doing is also creating links. And I want you to remember this. We're creating links to these other classes, these other tables, right? Once I add a new DB set, right, I'm creating these links, these relationships between one table and the other, right? And that's the important piece. So far it's okay. Let's log in. Oh, we're already in as a store manager. That's good because if we didn't log off, right? And now I should be able to go details in a second when everything loads properly, MVC and my VM, right? Because that's why it's taking long, because of this. There we go. And I should be able to see this, and I should be able to go back, right? And I should even try and do delete. I probably be able to do that too. Okay. So it looks like it's functioning for now, although slowly. Are you with me? Okay, now I'm going to save this up to GitHub because I've got everything working. I've added my model classes that I need for my new features. It's a great time to publish to GitHub, which is what I'm going to do, right? So I'm going to call this lesson 12, right? Now, notice that it wanted to go to lesson 11, right? Because that was what our template was based off of. But I want to create a new one called lesson 12. Okay, and it can't be here. It's got to be under Centennial, right? And click publish. Okay, great. Changes. Let's look at the changes that we made. We added these things. We added our carts. We updated our music store context, orders, and order details. So added new model classes to support the shopping cart functionality. Now, here's the thing. We already had those three tables in the database. In reality, right? In reality, in real life, if we're adding functionality, I probably would have to create those tables on my own. Now, the great thing about this is the database is already there, right? So yes, we're migrating, but the tables were already there. That's why it worked in this case, right? In the reality, if we had an existing catalog, which we're turning into a shopping cart, we'd have to create the tables and add some sample data to play with, right? Before we did this. But we already had that information because I just connected to stuff that already existed. Okay, great, fantastic. You guys have that. So if you want to download, you know, the latest version, you can go ahead and go up to GitHub and grab everything that's on there. All the latest model stuff is in there. Okay, next, let's take a look at what's missing. Online in the walkthrough, we have the order class and we have the cart class, right? And we also have the order details class. Those are the three classes we added in. Let's take a look and see if they're any different here than they were for the ones we have, because we want to make sure that things are correct. And we'll talk about the differences. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of close all these down for a second. And we'll look at only the ones we want so that way we don't confuse ourselves, right, with the walkthrough. And I'll explain what we're doing here. Okay, so let's start off, if you look at the left, with the cart class. Okay, so here's our cart class. Now there's a bit of separation here. Yes? Thank you for that. Oh, what happened? Right? Published to GitHub, but then I already did publish to GitHub. Did it not go?
Well, is it still connected? See the orange bar?
No, it's incorrect. Even though it says connected to 12, this should be just a sync and push, right? It didn't matter. Even if there is no sync. See, if I click sync and go sync now, and by the way, this is a glitch. This is not something that normally happens, right? So But yeah, glitches happen, especially with Visual Studio, right? Especially when you do things like templates, right? So how do I fix this problem? Command line, people. That's how you fix it. There is no better way to do it than this. If you try and monkey around with Visual Studio, you may get it done, you may not, all right? So how do I do this? First, let's check my GitHub project. Thank you for that warning, right? Before I move on. So to go to GitHub, it would be a big waste of time, right? And if I look at Centennial, you can see what project I have up here. It says lesson 11, and it's the old lesson if it looks like from 6 days ago, but I can't sync to it, all right? So one thing I'm gonna do is kill this thing. Bear with me while I do it. So make sure I copy the name, go into my danger zone, and delete the repository, right? And then I'm gonna recreate it in a second. So we're gonna do it the other way around, okay? So let's make the repository again. Make sure that it's in the right place, which is Centennial. Create the new name for the project. There we go. Bang, bang, bang. Done. Empty repository. Let's fix it on this side now. How do I do it?
Oh, you don't come 10004
Thank you.
instead of 229.
Did I just kill something that existed from another class? I don't think so. It says Centennial, right? So we're fine. Yeah, it's because of the way I have my stuff on the VM. Just ignore me. Okay, so yeah, it's okay. I can go back in here and delete it again. And what I want to do is do that again. I have to smile at that one. And it's just what happens sometimes. I'll get in there and just move these to COMP229. All right. So there we have it. So now we have a space, a repository. Thank you for that again. And now we have to fix it here. How do I fix it? In my Solution Explorer, the option is for Visual Studio 2015 or Enterprise. I should be able to right-click. I should be able to right-click. And I should be able to go to say something where it says Open Folder in File Explorer. I should see that option. When I do that, it's going to open up my File Explorer. It's important to go here because I'm going to step back up one step where I can see my project. One more step to COMP229 where I can see the layout. It's lesson 12. I'm going to keep my folder window open, and I'm going to minimize this screen and this screen. And get rid of this. I don't care about this. Now I'm going to go to command line. Right? Now, in order for command line to work, you have to have Git working on the command line. But this is how I would fix this problem, with all respect. 1, check to see that Git's working on this thing. Yes. Clear the screen. Okay? Then cd and drag and drop from this folder to fix the problem over here. And press enter. Now, press enter. And go back to this one for a second so you can see it. There you go. Now, one thing to note is this one has a Git folder. And what I want to do is get rid of this Git folder because that is going to corrupt us. So we're going to delete this folder. What the Git folder does, the only way you can see that is if you've exposed files and folders in your Windows 10 by going to your folder settings in your control panel. And again, for that, just for people who don't know how to do that or forgot, if I search for control panel, right? And if you go to file and folder settings or folder settings, right? And if you look at this thing, there's File Explorer options. This is one in Windows 10. But we want to really see something like folder settings. This is what the new folder settings looks like, right? Then what I want to look at is, if I look at View, you can see that it says Display File Icons. What I don't want to is I want to show hidden files and folders. I don't want to hide the extensions from known system files. And I don't want to hide protected operating system files. So I can get at that .git folder. Because anything that's dot something is hidden by default, okay? So now, yes, and in the folder, there's folder options here too. That's the other way to do it. Yes, that's another way of doing it. Same thing with what I just done here. But for people who have Windows 7, they could do just what I just did, right? Or Windows 8, sorry. So that's one thing. So now in here, but yes, view does exist here, and you can modify your view and see what you want to look at. Because there's options in here where you can see the exact same things you saw before. So file name extensions and hidden items, all right? Okay. Now, if I do directory, you'll see the folders. And you notice also that there's no .git folder, which is a good thing. I'm going to say git init like we do normally, right? It creates it on this side. Notice it's been created though, right? And I'm going to clear the screen just to see so you can see it better. I'm going to say git add dot. There we go. That's adding everything in. Clear the screen again. Git commit -m. I'm going to do a new initial commit. This is not going to kill my my stuff that I currently have in. The only thing that it'll do is any commits that I had from before are gone, right? If I really wanted to keep those commits, then I'd have to download the project as on my desktop, open it up, and then add it, create a whole new project, which is kind of crazy. So this is just a fast way of doing it. Okay, I need these lines, right? I can type them in by hand, or I can copy paste. Let's copy paste, right? Fast and dirty again, and Control V. Oh, sorry, it would be on my desktop, right-click paste, right, and press enter. And then when I've done that, you should have a push directly up on Git, if you look at it now. Right now, the good thing is, what does it do to, how does it affect Visual Studio? Visual Studio is very forgiving. And if you notice now, it looks at the exact project name right here. Notice that it's all up to date. So if I go to Team Explorer, and if I go to Home, and if I look at Sync, it won't give me that little issue anymore, right? It's gone. If I go to Home, and if I go to Changes, there'll be no changes. And I can also look at current branches. You can see what the current master branch is and what the repository is. So it's we're all good. And that's the better way to do it. Honestly, there's a lot less steps involved, and Visual Studio is not going to get in your way. Okay? But right now, you should be able to go up on GitHub and get everything else that's up there. Okay? Any questions with that one? Okay, great. So we have this stuff. We have this stuff. What I wanted to do is, before we made that mistake, I made that mistake, I wanted to go and compare it to the walkthrough. So here's my walkthrough. I want to compare this with what I have here. Now, other than the spacing, because the spacing is added in because of Git, right? Notice that the key attribute has been added in, this annotation, right? Because of the way this is named, record ID. Remember I talked about this? This is a safety, right? This key. And the other reason why it's like that is because this is telling Microsoft what the primary key is for the table, right? That's number one. Also, here's extra stuff that we put in, required, right? Whereas here, nothing, right? Why? Because in this old version, right, it wasn't required that you would have a card ID. Here, it's required, because without a card ID, you have no link, right, to the actual record itself. Okay, so this is the required piece. Album ID, count, date created in album should be all identical, pretty much. Okay, this is good. So this part's all done. Next, let's go to the next part. This part, there's going to be many differences here. All right, why? Because if I look at the next one, which is my order, right? Here's my order. You can see that I got a couple of things. One, systems diagnostics code analysis is going to put this up here, which we don't care about. It's not going to hurt us one way or the other, right? We also have a constructor that creates a new hash set of type order detail. And if you notice over here, there's no constructor, right? So that's something new that we created by linking to entity framework. Leave that alone. Not going to hurt you. We may need to create an empty constructor, though, just letting you know. Okay, here's the other stuff we have to do. Order ID. Notice that in order ID, there's no key, right? Why? Why is there no key annotation in order ID, but we had it in the other one? Why would we need the key annotation in the first place? Let me go back to cart for a second so you can see what I'm talking about. So Javed, you're interested in stuff. Why would I need this key annotation here, but not in the other ones? Why would you think it's required? Remember what I said. The default is Microsoft detects what the primary key is if you put the word ID or the characters ID in the name of your primary key, right? That's how it detects. So why is it that I need to put in key? Why? Come on, look at what I got there. Thank you, Eddie. That's the reason. Because I have more than one ID, right? I have record ID, right? I have card ID. I have album ID. I have a bunch of IDs. And Microsoft can't differentiate between which one is the primary key, right? Efficiently. Usually it takes the first one, by the way. But why not force it and tell Microsoft explicitly, instead of being implicit and trying to figure out what's going on, tell Entity Framework what they're looking for. And that's why we put that key value in there. Even if you put it into existing tables right now and put key in front of it, indicating that would be the primary key, it's not going to hurt anything. Okay? That's what this is for. So here in order, because order only has one ID right here, And notice that the other stuff comes down way over here, right? Like order details. This is a link to my order details. I don't really need to put my key annotation up there, okay? Here's another really good thing. It also adds in things like string length, here, here, and here, all those places that match the database. And I think this is better than the way it was before, right? Because I'm just telling you this in advance, right? If we do this kind of stuff, then when we create our views, they're going to be much better in terms of user input validation, right? Much better if we did it this way than if we typed it by hand like this, okay? Because, yes, we're good, but why wouldn't I add annotations to tell Microsoft how long they are and if anything is required or not? Okay, I have to be honest with you. I know what's going to happen because I've done this thing before a couple of times, right? So I know we're going to eventually change this thing, this order stuff, and add in other requirements, other validations. Let's skip forward for a second before we talk about order detail and take a look at other stuff. By the way, there's one more model we're going to have to add in that has nothing to do, well, we're going to have to hand bomb something, right? This is the one we're going to hand bomb right here, right? We're going to talk about this one. But let's go into to the next page. If you scroll down, and if you go to the next part of the walkthrough, right? And if I go to next, so this is page 2, page 9, part 9 of this whole series. If you scroll down, right, they start making changes to the shopping cart, right? So here's my checkout controller, and la 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 la, right? Well, way down in the weeds here, right? If I'm not wrong, we start making changes to my order, and here they are. Notice that they put all the string lengths in, right? But they also did a couple of other things, like scaffold column false. What's that? Does anyone remember? What does this mean? Scaffold column false. Don't display the column in the view is what it means, right? So I want this, and I want to put it in order ID. I also want to put it in my system date order date. I want that. I also want to put it in username and other things, right? Well, this is interesting because it says username and first name and blah, blah, blah. Okay. These are all the things that are here, okay? Hold on a second. Do I have username and first name and blah, blah, blah? I do, right? So what I want to do is take this first piece, copy it, go over here, and where it says my order ID, start putting these annotations in now. Why should I do it now? I mean, I could do it later again, but what does this mean? I'd have to redo all my views again, right? The reason why we put this in is so that it doesn't cast our views. If I know, if I plan properly in real life, that I need these extra things, I don't want to scaffold my ID out, I would know that I don't want to scaffold out my ID, all right? I'm not going to make these changes afterwards because it's going to force you to do a code first migration or to rescaffold out the views. Why would I do that? I'm not going to do it. So Control V. And I want to do that for this one. Remember what it says. It's got to be for order date. This is right from the walkthrough, guys. There's nothing that I'm hiding here, right? Right? For username, right? I shouldn't see my username. Why? Why would I see my username? That shouldn't be there, right? So no, and it has to be put, these annotations have to be put directly in front of the property name, okay? This modifies, these two things modify this thing. That's what it does, okay? Just to get you to understand. So that's what this is, username and first name is, I'm okay because it's required. But take a look at this, it says error message required, first name is required, right? That's a pretty cool annotation. So this first name, even though it's my string length, this gives me validation so that way if I don't put in my first name, I have a problem. And I can copy directly from here and modify, right? Oops. I meant copy and paste, right? So first name is required, right? And I'm going to do the same thing for last name because I bet your last name is required too. And so is address and city and state. We're going to modify it. We're going to keep state because otherwise we'd have to modify the table to make it on province. Forgive me, please, right? Code first migration. I don't want to do that right now, right? But city, state, postal code, all that stuff is required. Country is required. Email is required. Everything is pretty much required. Let's put them in, right? So, but instead of copying exactly from there, I'm just going to copy and paste and put them in myself. So this is last name is required, right? And this one is my address is required, right? By the way, guys, you can do it with me. Don't just watch, right? Unless I went too fast already. and then which case, watch. And then, paste, cities required. So all I'm doing is when we put this error message in, right, what this is doing is it's going to spit out this error message if we have a problem, right? And it's going to spit this out in our validation HTML that's going to be automatically generated by the view, right? That's why it's so good, right? So state is required, right? And we're also need postal code, that's required. We can say let's put postal code in here. There we go. And country. I don't think phone number is required though, thank God. I don't think so. Is it? Oh. Is it? Damn. It is. And so is email, right? You guys get the picture, right? Phone number is required. And so is email. Email address is required. Right? By the way, you want to put as descriptive message as you can, right? Email address instead of just email. Yeah.
On the registration, you usually have something to check that you want.
Yeah, that's a CAPTCHA or reCAPTCHA. That's an additional feature we're not going to put in, but yes, you would have to normally include that, right? Because otherwise, why would you, that means anyone can sign up. Okay, here's something else too. Take a look at this. Regular expression. Now, we didn't talk about regular expressions, but this basically says from here, that's what regular expression is, right? Until the end, right? I want you to start this. This is a raw string. That's what the @ means. Look at the raw string. This is the raw string right here. And it says this. Have you guys done regular expressions before? Yes, you guys should know it. So the square brackets mean that from A to Z, uppercase, also A to Z, lowercase, and 0 to 9, right? Plus a dot. That's what it requires for the email address. And by the way, this is not a great idea, right? Plus, then again, it's, what's the @ mean? Optional, right? Optional is the @ plus an optional A to Z and lowercase a to Z, 0 to 9, and another dot, right? And if you notice, it says plus with a minus, and then plus, and then / dot means it's required. It's just an escape character, right? A to Z, and then 2 to 4. It says 2 to 4 characters for the .com or .ca or .whatever. That's the pattern they're trying to match for the email, and the @ is the one that's actually going to be there, right? Okay, so that's the regular expression, and notice it says email is not valid, right? And we're going to put it where it says data type is email address, and if you notice here, what they're doing is they're putting it after this data type email address, after the email or after the display name, but before the email is here. So all it's doing is adding another regular expression and also saying what kind of data is going to go into the email address. Okay, just putting it out there. So we can copy and paste. So copy. And we're going to go before the email address and underneath the string length, right? Actually, if you notice here, right, there is no string length, but it's okay, right? So we can put that in there. So there it is. Okay, data type is email address. Now this is all good for scaffolding. That's why we're doing it. Here's another thing. Notice the display name, right, is also email address as opposed to just an email. So we can just take this display name. Remember, these are just annotations, right? So I'm going to copy this one. And we can also add that in. By the way, there's no required order at this point, right? You can put this wherever you want, right? So we're going to put this at the beginning or the end. Doesn't matter. There we go. Display name to emails. So what happens is, now notice how it does this, right? Display name is equal email. It says the type of namespace display name attribute could not be found. Are you missing a directive or assembly reference? So what do I do? This is correct, by the way, right? So if I go control dot, right, it's going to say use them component model, right? And if to check to see if this is correct, right? To see if this is correct, if it's the component model that's going to help me, I can add it in, see what happens. So for example, one of these, using system.component model, right? And of course it works, right? Again, anything that doesn't work here, what am I going to do after this? Am I going to scaffold out my views? No, hell no. I'm going to build. And if there's any problem, it's going to come up. That's what I want to do. All right. Next. Scaffold column false for the total. I don't care about the total here. So copy. And in the underneath here, paste. And scaffold column false here, right? Any other issues that you can see that you want to point out here? Take a look at the walkthrough. Display name, first name, display name, last name. That's a good idea. Why is it? Why? Otherwise, it's going to say first name together like this. That's not what we want in our view. We want first name. So these are good ideas here. I'm going to copy these. This is all review, by the way, when we did models, right? So if I skip up to first name and last name, we can do that too. So here's our display name. By the way, you can also display where name is equal to. That was the other annotation we used, right? So first name and then last name, right? Okay, those are all the things we've added in for this model. Our order is done. We're going to come back to this in a second. And this is all input validation. That's all we did this for. So that way, when we come and construct our view, which is going to look something like this, then we're going to get these little messages that say, hey, address is required, city is required, all this is required, stop. You can't just enter whatever you want. Okay? Really, really important to do. We're not going to do credit cards. Remember I talked about that. We're going to make it so that you can't. Because I don't want to have credit card information here. Okay. So this is all from these changes. Okay? I'm going to go back. And I know that I'm going to need them for registration and checkout, so I put them in ahead of time. Let's check out the other models to make sure they're clean, because we don't want to make sure if there's any other problems. So again, we need this other model, this MVC Music Store, right? And what we want to say, it says, one thing it says, we'll make our one last update to our MVC Music Store entities class, right? That include the DB sets. So they've already done this work, right? That's what they've done here. And we've done that ahead of time. So we've added in the cart, right? We've added in the order details, and we've added in the order. We've already done that work when we transfer over the classes. So we've done these models and everything else, plus we've updated our entity. Okay? Now the business logic, right? This business logic is the shopping cart class, which is a totally different class that is not exactly a model, right? I'm just putting it out there for you guys so you understand, right? What do I mean by that? Notice that it is in the models folder. This is where we're going to put it. And we're going to stop recording for a second after this, and we're going to take a short break. We're going to build everything. I'm going to update GitHub, and when we come back, we're going to rebuild the shopping cart class. Why? Two things happen here. One, we do connect to the database, right? And what we're going to do here is this model, this shopping cart model, is the model, and this pattern is what I want you to use in your final project, okay? You don't have to create your own. I want you to use this as a template for your shopping cart, okay? So you don't have to go and reinvent the wheel, whatever. This perfectly works fine, okay? So this is a separate model class that has nothing to do directly with the database tables. This model class we're going to use to connect and create relationships between one table and another in order for us to handle the shopping cart itself, okay? So that's what we're going to do next after the break. And if you notice, there's additional things here that I have to explain as we walk through. Like, for example, the matching cart and album instances. All this stuff is using something called Lambda Expressions, which I'm going to go into and remind you of what it does. So instead of you trying to figure all this out, which is out of scope of this course, and you won't hit Lambda Expressions, like I said, until you get to programming 3, right? There's no point me going to a lot of detail here. I just want you to see it so you understand what a Lambda expression is. And then when you get to programming 3, you'll know more about this. But I'll explain every one of these things as we go through. All right, fantastic. Let's build our model here. Let's build everything, make sure it all works. I'm going to do a build project, build solution. If there's any problem, right, it's going to stop me, right? Take care, brother. Run it, right? And after we run things, right, we should see everything as normal. Okay, he scared me. Yeah, it's like scared. I was scared, right? And then, you know, it's a bad thing when you're scared. It's like, who is that? All right, anyway, so we see that this is all good. You know, Lenny Kravitz's greatest hits, right, as an example. Let's go to the details. They're good, $8.99 for that. Everything works as it should, right? And I'm checking that more. You guys, whenever you make a feature, always check to see one step at a time when we do experiments like this that things are still working. If you add 10 features in all at the same time, it's crazy, right? Because you're going to get an error. You're going to do some troubleshooting, and you don't want to break your build, right? Here's a really good thing. In real life, this, I wouldn't have even pushed to the final build. I would have created it in something called a staging area, right? And my staging area will be a different website that connects to the database that has nothing to do with the main website that's currently live, right? And then what I would do is, as soon as I know that my staging area is working, that I can run the shopping cart and do tests and all that stuff with the existing data, then I'm going to plan a cutover, right? And usually that'll happen during off business hours. Now, when you're an online store, there really isn't a great time. I'll be honest. And by the way, this, now that we're in November and tomorrow's December, this is the worst time in real life if we're really doing it. We wouldn't do it during busy season like this, right? I probably would have had to do this in September, right? So that I can start the process, work out the bugs, so when it comes to a really busy season like Black Friday and Cyber Monday and all that stuff, right, and this whole Cyber Week and Black Friday week, whatever it's going to be called after Thanksgiving, is the biggest weekend in the States, and actually it's the biggest weekend for shopping in Canada right now, right? I wouldn't do an online store transfer today. That'd be crazy, right? So if it failed, that just brought the entire store down, right? Or maybe the website wouldn't work, right, which is even worse. So I would do that probably a couple months ago, and I would probably have, you know, done a lot of testing. Okay, so we've got everything working. Everything seems to be okay with what we had before. I'm going to stop. And I'm going to go to my Team Explorer, and I'm going to go to Home, and I'm going to look at changes, and you can see that I've only updated my order model. So I'll say Updated Order Model, right, to add all these additional annotations in here. So we have better validation when we scaffold out our views. Save, right? I'm going to commit all. I'm going to go to Home. I'm going to go to Sync, and we'll push it up to GitHub. And then we're going to stop recording. So let's take a 10-minute break or 15 minutes. Give you guys enough chance to go coffee, have your cigarette, talk to your loved ones, you know, maybe vote to see if you want to have the exam or not, and then come back, right? And we'll talk about the next piece. Okay? And hopefully we'll get a chance to sit together and I can check your work too. That'd be really great. In fact, why don't we do that? When we come back, before we continue, before everyone runs away, because I know people want to just come here and then get checked and see you later, right? We'll do that first, and then if you guys, you know, need to go or whatever, you can go and I'll keep recording. Okay? So let's stop doing that now.